Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ella Johnson Show. Yes, it is that time of Sunday for us to go live, and we are excited. Listen, I get excited every Sunday that I come on. Why? Because I'm meeting someone very interesting online here across the country, and they usually have an important story to tell. Well, that's not the exception this week because this week we are meeting Aaliyah Stewart. She is the CEO and founder of I Am Them, the ASW Foundation. Yes, the ASW Foundation. I Am Them. I love the title of her website. But you guys are going to meet her in a second. But I just wanted to introduce and welcome you guys to the Ella Johnson Show. If you're watching from Facebook, thank you. As always, I appreciate it. But I need you to do me a favor today. Everybody that's watching, okay? This is a very simple task. Do me a favor and just hit the share button, right? Just hit the share button so others can watch this broadcast. This is so very important. One, because we have the midterm elections coming up, and what Miss Aaliyah is doing is incredible. She is an incredible young woman. And everyone that's within the sound of my voice, and not even within the sound of my voice, needs to hear her story today. If you're watching from YouTube, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much, as always. But I need you to do me a favor. Since you're there, just subscribe to the channel, right? Aaliyah, they're already there, right? So just subscribe to the channel so that you will now know every time I come live, right? Well, listen, guys, I am excited again because all month, over and over, we've been bringing people to the broadcast who've been sharing their stories, and all of them, in a nutshell, they've gone from pain to purpose, right? Well, this young lady's mission has become a movement, right? But before we take this break, I just need to do my motivational message for today, right? We always do that here. It's just kind of what we do to get you started for the week. But I have a very simple quote. All right. I want you guys to get this. Write this down if you have to. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. All right. I'm going to say that one again, right? Because I need the lights in the house to say amen, right? If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. Guys, listen, this young woman here is going to show you guys that you're never too young to make it happen, because she's making it happen, and she started at 14 years of age. That's right. I said it, 14 years of age, right? She is on a mission, and I want you guys to meet her when we come back after this message. It's time for the Ella Johnson Show. I'm so excited that you've taken time out to tune in to the Ella Johnson Show. I hope you enjoy the broadcast. You may laugh, you may cry, but I hope you'll be moved by what you hear. So sit back, relax, and I'll see you at the end of the show. One day someone asked me, Ella, why do you like to have talk shows? Why is it so important for you that people come onto your show to tell their stories? I said, because people have to understand that things don't happen to you. They happen through you. So I like to be that platform for people to be used by God. And now it's time for the Ella Johnson Show, where we set the table for real talk conversations. Stay tuned. And we're back. We're back. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show. Today, we are meeting Aaliyah Stewart. She is a beautiful young CEO and founder of the ASW Foundation. She's out of Gary, Indiana. and she is here on the Ella Johnson Show. Welcome, Miss Aaliyah.
Hi.
Isn't she beautiful? And I just absolutely love you because you are like a ball of fire. And if you're already doing what she's doing now, imagine where she's going to be when she's like 25 or 30, right? You started a
Mhm.
nonprofit organization. Now, we're going to get into her story, guys, because it will move you. Because what led her is her pain. A lot of people that come on my broadcast to tell their true stories, it usually the successes that they have was catapulted because of pain, from pain to purpose. Well, she has a mission for the ASW Foundation, and that mission has now become a movement, right? Because her brothers were killed at the ages of 16 and 20 to gun violence. They lost their lives to gun violence. Just 7 years apart is when it happened. And that moved her to do something really beautiful in the lives of other young people. Welcome to the Ella Johnson Show, Miss Aaliyah.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I am just I saw your story on Facebook. There was something there was some other kind of health issue that was going on, but then when I started reading your story, I was like, "Oh, wow. There's a lot more to this young woman." And I just wanted to meet you, and right away, guys, she was like, "I'm in. Let's do it." Right? I'll come on the Ella Johnson Show. Because so many people that are watching this broadcast, sweetheart, they have lost family members to gun violence. We had like an entire series on it recently with mothers coming on here talking about the loss of their children. And a lot of them was due to gun violence. So what you're doing is super important. And I pray, and as we get into your story, that a lot of people will jump on board. I want you guys to pay attention to her website that is scrolling on the bottom of the screen. While we are here, just let the Lord use you and go there and make a donation for her. She's doing really good things. You'll get to see where your money, your dollars are going, because she posts everything and you can see everything right there. But I'm just excited, Aaliyah. You're How old are you, if you don't mind my
I'm
asking?
no problem at all. I'm 22 years old.
22 years old, guys, at
Yes.
14 years old. I want to know about your brother, because tonight, guys, I want to make this mention that our show tonight is dedicated to her brothers, Anthony White and James Anderson. They lost their lives at
Mhm.
16 and 20, and they would be so proud of their sister, who is
Oh,
here standing in the gap for them, because I'm sure they would give the same message that she's giving. And because of their death, it left her an only child. Well, she is doing good with it. She's letting God use her. And we're going to definitely hear a lot more about that. So, before we get started, I really, really want to get to know a little bit more about your brothers. Can you tell us
okay.
what it was like growing up with them?
Well, first, giving honor to God. Thank you so much for having me. My brother Anthony was 16 years old when he was killed, and his smile literally would light up an entire room. He was very fashionable. He stayed in the latest styles, but he would give you the shirt off your back. My brother James, that was the jokester of the family. Very handsome, smooth, chocolate skin. He was into his style as well. He was into himself, and he was very big on family. We would have a joke where my mom would get Oreo ice cream, and he had a thing for crunching up brownies inside of the ice cream and making him, I don't know what it was, a sundae or whatever. And that was our connection, food, right? Different foods, eating hot wings and eating curry chicken with chips crumbled up in it. That was definitely our connection. And both of my brothers were ahead of their time.
Wow. Now, when you say that, what do you mean?
They both were 16 and 20 trapped in like 40-year-old bodies. They were ahead of their time, their mannerism, how they carried themselves, their confidence, who they were. They were young men instead of
Wow.
young boys.
Wow.
Yes.
So taken so soon. So let's talk about I want everybody to see them, because we did start the show with them, but I'm not sure if everybody saw them. Tell us which is which.
Okay, so the one that I'm standing on, well, standing next to him, that's my brother James. The one where I'm pictured on his back, that's my brother Anthony.
Oh, wow. Well, very handsome young man too. Very
Thank
handsome
you,
young man. Wow.
thank you, thank
So let's talk about the first one who
you. Okay,
was killed. Which one was that? Which one was killed first?
Anthony was killed first. He was 16 years old.
So tell us about that if you can, if you could talk about it.
Anthony was out with his friends. They went to a party. Um, a fight broke out. The guy, closed the club down. The people they were fighting pulled them, to this gas station. My brother got out to break up the fight, and as he was getting out to break up the fight, he was shot in the head.
Oh,
And
so
his
you're,
killer was 15.
oh,
Yes,
oh my gosh, I didn't know those details.
yes,
But that is heartbreaking.
yes,
15 years old.
yes,
This is okay, guys. This is something that we just really do need to address. 15 years of age. Where is he getting a gun? Where?
yes,
Where are these kids getting guns? Because I need to see just as much a fight as part of the fight in ending gun violence. We have to figure out where these kids are getting this gun and get to the source, right?
yes,
Because they
yes.
keep ending up in the hands, and we know there's no way this child got that gun legally, right? So
Mhm.
did he, the young man, the 15 young man, did he go to prison?
Yes, he did. And he
He
was
did.
recently released in 2019, 2020, and I was able to speak with him.
Were you? Tell it. Can you
Yes.
tell us about that conversation?
Yes, it went great. I expressed to him that I forgive him. He owes me nothing, but he owes God everything. And I wanted him to take the second chance that God gave him and do something with it.
Wow. And how did he receive that?
He received it well. I believe, he's doing great. He went to jail. He got his GED. He got some trading. So I believe, as far as I know, he's doing good. He's doing great. And I pray that God keeps blessing
I am just so impressed with you. Can I
him.
say that? I mean, because listen, I mean, real talk. A lot of people, someone takes our loved one and we're bitter and angry. Tell me a little bit, Aaliyah, why didn't you take that route? Why did you forgive him? Why did you, embrace him when he got out? Where did that come from?
For our African American culture, forgiveness is not something that we really talk about. It's not something that we really express in our community. So we walk around enabling ourselves because so and so did this to us, because Bill or Bob or Tom did this to us. We're angry for life. Whereas I didn't want to allow the person who killed my brother to have control over me. I felt that they,
Yes.
already took my brother. So why would
Yes.
I let them dictate how I live my life?
Very good. Very good
Thank
point.
you.
Very good point. I like that. Now, 7 years later, you're getting a message. How did you find out about Anthony? Before we move on from Anthony, how did you find out about him when he passed? Who came and told you?
Okay, so that night I was actually at my cousin's house getting babysitted. It was about 2 or 3 in the morning. They came and woke me up. They took me to my aunt's house, and my other aunt, her son, was there when it happened, and he was very angry. And normally he's very nice and loving, and he wouldn't come say hi to me. And I couldn't understand that, so I was like, "Oh, forget him too, then." Um, and it was like in the middle of the night, and I remember I went from that place to that place, and then finally my godmother met them at the gas station to pick me up, and then we went home. When I got to my house, it was so many cars there. There was so many people in my house. We have my childhood home is very nice and big, but it felt like it was crowded. So I went in the house. I was smiling because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a party, and I'm just not getting
Oh,
here. So I thought that it was a party, but when I got in the house, everyone was sad. It was people sitting on our steps, going up our stairs to get up to our bedrooms. And it was people in the hallway. It was people crowding in the room, in my brother's room. So my mom took me into my brother's room. She set me on the bed, and her words to me was, your brother loves you, right? And I said, yeah, duh, of course. And this is 7-year-old me, because me and my brother was more of my father than my brother. And she was like, he was shot. And I fell back and I cried and I ran out the room, and I have very chronic asthma. And so I had an asthma attack. So I went and I locked myself in my mom's room. And they were trying to get in and give me a treatment because, of course, I was out of breath, and,
right.
they could tell something. My breathing was was bad, and I remember them giving me a treatment, and that's how I found out about my brother Anthony. But the funny part about it is why I knew the word shot was very bad because my brother, I don't think he was supposed to take me, but he took me to see Get Rich and Die Hard while trying. The
Oh,
50 Cent movie.
50 Cent movie. Yeah.
So I don't think my brother was supposed to take me to the movie theaters with his friends to see that. But of course, in the movie, I saw 50 Cent get shot 9 times and he survived. So
And you thought your brother would, yeah.
my question to my cousin, I asked her, and what's funny, I went out to eat with her today. I said, how can 50 Cent get shot so many times and survive, but my brother gets shot and he doesn't? And that was 7-year-old me. So that's how I found out my brother passed away.
And how did you cope as a 7-year-old? I mean, did you wake up crying? I mean, what was that like for you?
It was very traumatic, and it's still traumatic to this day. I'm still coping right now. I'm still dealing with it right now.
Wow.
7-year-old me, I was in counseling. I hated school. I cried. I didn't like people. I didn't want to be around anyone. I was very just devastated. My brother was my best friend. That was my first best friend.
Yeah. Wow. So now you're dealing with the grief of Anthony. And here 7 years later, James gets
Yes,
shot.
yes.
Tell us a little bit about that day. How old are you at that point?
Okay, so it was about almost 7 years. So that was about 6 years, 2014. It happened in March. So that day in particular, I'll never forget that day either. My brother was killed on March 18th of 2014, and my cousin that previously lived with us was killed March 15th of 2014.
Oh,
So that day, I was actually in class. One of my teachers, they let me sit in his classroom all day to do a PowerPoint, well, do a movie slide. Like I used to know how, well, I still do, how to make slideshows with pictures
right.
for funerals. So I was making the slideshow for the funeral. And this one of my teachers ran upstairs, like, you got to come downstairs. Come on, you got to go downstairs now. But we had recently took I-STEP. So I thought that like I had messed up on my test. I-STEP is like a state exam we have to take at school. So I thought that I had messed up on my I-STEP. So I'm like, okay, cool, I'm coming. And when I got downstairs, it's a little comical now because of my reaction to it. My mom was sitting down there. She had a scarf on her head. And I was like, you came to my school with a scarf on? I was like, Mom, what are you doing? And she was just crying. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why do you have a scarf on? And she was like, I'll tell you about it later. Let's go. So when we got in the car, she was, what's wrong? She was like, I'll tell you about it I'll tell you about it. And so I waited a couple of minutes. I was like, well, what's wrong? She was like, I'll tell you about it. And I was like, well, what's wrong? Like, I kept just doing that. So finally, when we pulled up home, my stepfather at the time, we walked in the house and he was like, are you okay? And my mom started crying and she was like, I couldn't even tell her.
Oh,
And he was like, he's like, I can't think of his exact words, but the gist of it, he told me James had got killed. And this time, I locked myself in the bathroom and laid on the bathroom floor
yeah.
for some hours. I wouldn't come out the bathroom for hours. It took for our other brother to come from Indianapolis to home to Maryville, and that's a 2-hour drive. And I think that's finally when I unlocked myself out the bathroom.
Oh,
I actually, now that I think about it, I actually think I fell asleep in the bathroom.
yeah. You were trying to find some kind of peace. What happened with James?
Um, James was more of a family matter. So a family member actually killed
Oh, so that
him. Yeah,
makes it even worse. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
So how do you deal with that when a family member is the one that took their life?
So actually, um, it was on his mother's side. So, it wasn't my direct family member, so it was a little different.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Was it because they were arguing? Was it, I mean, was it
Yes,
over
it was the
something?
argument going wrong. It was the argument going
Oh,
wrong.
I see that happen way too often in families. They're either drinking and they don't think it's gonna go that far, and then your brother ends up shot. Now, was there, once he was killed, was there a lot of family friction? Did you guys, were you able to deal with it as a family, or was it a little strained?
I'm not really sure of how it went on his family side because again, I wasn't related, so I'm not really
Right.
sure.
Not really sure. Well, how did you deal with
Yeah.
this one? Still dealing with it.
I am still dealing with it because me and my brother James were very, very, very close. So still dealing with it very much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that, the death of a loved one is never easy. It's never easy. Is when you decided to do this nonprofit, because this was at 14 years of age when you were like, look, I have to do something to stop this. Where did that come from? And who did you tell and who helped you get it started?
I knew that God had put me through so much that my test will be a testimony for other people. So I knew that I had to find something positive to do. So I reached out to my aunt, and she actually helped me.
Wow. And what did you tell her as is the reason why you wanted to do this?
Say that again for me. I'm sorry, the thing went out.
Oh, that's okay. What did you tell her as to why your reason for wanting to do this? What was your reason that you told her for why you wanted to create some kind of organization?
I told her that I wanted to help young people that had went through what I went through. I wanted to help young people who had lost loved ones to gun violence because I hadn't seen it been being done. I hadn't seen people really doing it. So I wanted to be that person to help them.
Now you're in Gary, Indiana, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what is it like? Because I've had people on my show from Gary and they say some things very similar to what you're talking about today. Is that what Gary was back in those days, like a very violent city? And just what was that like? And what do you remember as best as you can remember?
Um, I remember I've always been a sheltered child. So we
Mm.
actually did not live in Gary when my brother was killed. My mom purposely moved us to Maryville because she did not want to lose her child to the street.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God. How is mom doing? I wish she could have been able to join us, but how is she doing?
My mom is amazing, and I would love for you to interview her and have her on. Her story is definitely powerful. My mom is, I look at her every day and I gain a different type of strength. She's so powerful in her own aspect. Um, and, the way that God works everything together, she's powerful, and I love her so much. I look at her
Oh.
strength and I keep going.
Oh, I love it. And listen, mom, if you are watching, hear me when I tell you I would love to have you on the Ella Johnson
Yes.
show. Just hit me up for real, because you know what? We need more of this. We need to see more, because the streets and blacker communities do get a lot of feedback about the crime, the gun violence. In fact,
Hmm.
I mean, I have some stats that I thought were pretty alarming. Right there in your city, of what the crime is like. It looks like you guys have like there's like 1,363 people are dying every six, like someone is killed every 6 hours, and the average in a year has been 1,363 people have died in your city.
Hmm.
And there's been at least 3,200 that are wounded in gun shootings. Like something is definitely going on. They're like the ninth highest rate of gun homicides in the country, right there where
Hmm.
you are. Like I mean, can you speak to that? I mean, do you see it? Do you see it more young people? Because the stats are alarming. I mean, young people are dying more quicker. I mean, they're dying quicker in our black communities. Can you speak to some of that, Aaliyah?
I think that a lot of gun violence that is happening right now is due to young people not knowing their identity. Due to them not knowing who they are, who God called them to be. I think a lot of the problems are self identity. I really think that if more young people were able to tap into Jeremiah 29:11, If they were able to tap into who they are and who they belong to, life would be different for them. I think so many young people have so much potential and purpose. Not only do they have potential and purpose, but they have so much reason to be who God called them to be, but they just don't know any better. And I think that if we as a community came together and pulled together and found out how we could help a young person be who God called them to be, it would be different.
So that's interesting. You say that, and we talked a little bit about this last week too. You take a young man who
Yeah.
lives in a household very different than yours, because it sounds like you had a very strong upbringing, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
let's
Yes.
say you
Yes.
take someone and put them in a totally different area than you. The parents are not
Okay.
really there. They're not really there for them when they come home from school. And when they do come, they're drinking, watching TV, whatever the case may be. I'm giving like a worst case scenario, but not so
Right.
far away from what's really happening, right?
Right.
So, how does he even begin to see his potential if he doesn't, if everything around him looks like that? How does he, how do we tap into him and get him to see something differently than what he's really seeing?
We show him a broader horizon. Our whole purpose of wanting to open a youth center was to show young people that there's a beacon of light in your community. You don't have to be a statistic. You don't have to be the community that you come from, but you can rise above that. For instance, I always express to young people about me losing my brothers. I tell them about how I could have used that to enable me. I could have used that to say I have a nasty attitude because my brothers were killed. Well, who wants to keep hearing that story? Who wants to keep hearing I act like that because of this? I act like that because my dad wasn't there. Or I act like that because I was raised by a single mother. That's my story. But instead, I took the force that my single mother gave me, my single African American mother gave me, and I used that to push. Because if I didn't, that would be a slap in the face for all the sacrifices that she made, for things that I didn't have to go through, she went through for me.
Does your mom know how awesome you are? I'm
Thank you so much.
But no, I mean, because I mean,
Thank
you
you.
too have so much
Thank
wisdom
you.
for such a young lady, but you are so on point with everything you're saying, Aaliyah, because you know what? Forgiveness is something we definitely, I
It's
am,
key.
it is key. It is key to all of our issues, honestly, because it traps you too. When you are sitting around and you are living in unforgiveness, it keeps you trapped. You can never get out
Yeah.
of it, and what kind of counseling are you getting to deal with the loss of your brothers?
Counseling. I would say being able to have like someone that I can talk to outside of my family. My family was very angry with me for a very long time that I reached out to the person that killed my brother. But my peace is not their peace. So understanding that I always credit the greatest gift my mother gave me was the gift of knowing God. So with saying that, to not be um, a person that backs out on my word, I have to use that as a force to keep going. So crediting that God was basically the reason I was able to have peace. I wanted someone to forgive my family member that killed someone. So how could I not forgive someone else's family member for doing the same? So for me,
Amen.
yeah,
Yes.
so for me, gathering my peace and keeping my mind focused at all times, that was the best way for me to basically gather my thoughts. And my counselors from second grade up until my senior year of high school, my mother kept me in counseling. Even when she quit, she gave me an outlet for people to talk to. And that was basically the way that I was able to cope with losing my brother. And that's a mechanism I still utilize to this day. Whether it's a counseling person or someone that I trust or confide in, I talk to someone about how I feel.
One of my favorite quotes that exists is that the more people you help get what they want, the quicker you'll get what you want. And your youth center is coming. It's going to
Yes.
be a blessing. I just really do. Guys, she is, since 19, she's been raising money to open up her youth center. And they have a place, they have the building, but it still needs some work. But it sits at 38th Street and Broadway, right there in Gary, Indiana. I mean, listen, 14 is where you started. You were definitely not 14, though. Like you said, your brothers were well beyond their years. You are too, because you speak with such wisdom. and such love and such grace, and I think that it's just going to be a matter of time, and you're going to open that youth center. I just truly believe that God is going to open that door for you because of what you've given. And I just want to encourage you that when you spoke out to the guy who killed your brother, that was a very brave thing that you did,
Thank you.
because you went against everybody. You knew who you were, and you are a living example to these young people, because you started by being the example. You knew who you were, and you did what was not popular, but you were focused on purpose. And God has always been leading you towards your purpose. Pain will definitely get you there quicker than anything, won't it?
Yes, it will.
Yeah. But we learned, I talk about pain in a way that, I do this motivational message sometimes, and I talk about the pregnant woman, right? And how we can compare a pregnant woman to the dream and the vision that's living inside of us. And that includes you too, Aaliyah. You have a dream living inside of you. So it's like you're pregnant with it. And just like with a pregnant woman, I know you've never been pregnant, but I have a lot of experience in that. So I can kind of tell you a thing or two, right? But when you are pregnant, you have time for that baby to develop. And that's exactly what happens to our dreams. God allows time for them to develop. Everybody wants it now. I want it now. I want it now. I'm hungry now. You're not ready now. It's not developed yet, right? Just like that place, that youth center. It's not developed yet. But what happens is you're going to start feeling some pain. And this is what happens to a pregnant woman. We start feeling a little pain. And it's like, okay, some of that pain just reminds us that that dream is still inside of us, Aaliyah, in this
Right.
story, the baby. But there's going to come a day where you're going to go in labor. And this is when it's going to get the hardest, Aaliyah. There's going to come a day where it's going to seem like everything you try to do, it's like a block of wall. And this goes over here, and it's like, ouch, that hurt. Those are just labor pains, because that's letting you know that that dream is about to be birthed, right?
Amen.
Now, when a woman is pregnant, what she has to do is she has to push. Every time she feels a contraction, she pushes. So I want to encourage you to do the same thing. Every time something comes and somebody says no, or you bump up against the wall, push. Because
Yes,
at
ma'am.
some point you're going to push, and that baby is going to come true. That dream is going to come out. And listen, just like a woman who's been pregnant 6 times, once that baby is in your arms, once that youth center, and you have the key to it, you forget all about the pain, baby. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to see what some of my comments are, because they're just going off over here. I see Tavetta Patterson. Job well done, Aaliyah. We are so
That's
proud
my
of you
publicist.
and your ability to continue living your purpose on a daily basis. Thank you, Tavetta. Thank you so much. That's your publicist.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. And Robin Teen is here, and she's just been giving you kudos throughout the show. Amen, amen, amen. Yes, my God. Push, push, push. Yes, everybody wants you to push, because what you're doing is so, so very important. Have you had any naysayers? Have you had any people that says, have you had those kinds
Absolutely.
of things? Really?
Of course.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
Of
Well,
course.
how do you deal with it? Uh-oh, looks like we lost her. Hopefully she'll be back, guys. Are you guys enjoying this interview with Miss Aaliyah Stewart? I am. She is an incredible young woman. And if you are just tuning into the broadcast, we are interviewing Aaliyah Stewart today. She's out of Indiana, and she is the CEO and founder of ASW Foundation, and she has an organization, iamthem.org, www.iamthem.org. So across the bottom of the screen, I am sharing her website. If you're watching this broadcast and you feel led to just make a donation, whatever God puts in your heart to give, please, please do so. Give to this young woman and her dream and her vision, because she lost her brothers to gun violence. Both brothers. There's three of them, and she it left her the only child, and they both died. I mean, she could have just gone and just hidden and just been angry the rest of her life, but she turned that pain into her purpose, and now she is helping other young people know what their potential is, know that they have vision, they have purpose in their life, Because remember, at the beginning of the broadcast, I said, if you have a pulse, you have a purpose. And I want to say that to all of the young people that she is also mentoring. Like, she meets with them. She does fundraisers to raise money for her foundation. And it looks like she is back. You're back. I thought I was gonna have to just go on and on and on without you, but I'm so glad that you came back in, sweetie. So what were we saying? I was asking what?
You were asking about naysayers. Have I had some naysayers?
Naysayers. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because that always comes
Absolutely.
with it. That comes with
Yes,
it. So how did you deal
absolutely.
with it? How did you deal with your naysayers?
They crucified Jesus. And having my mom has helped me with that. Toughen my skin. Like, I'm very sensitive. Well, I was. So having my mother to teach me, my mother is my ram in the bush. She's my person. So when I cannot defend myself, or when I feel like I want to back down, or, I had to learn the hard way. God punishes you more for being a people pleaser, because you're not supposed to be a people pleaser. You're supposed to please God. So you're
Ooh.
supposed to align with God's will and God's purpose. So when you're focused more on pleasing other people, or making life work for other people, you're not really doing God's will. So for me, I would say that's how I dealt with it. Now I just feel like I'm okay with being confrontational. But previously, I didn't want to be that person. But now, if I focus more on what people think, it's making me lose sight of what God needs me to be.
Now I'm a little puzzled because you're doing something very positive. How can that be a problem to anyone? Like,
I
for
don't know.
real.
We have to keep praying for them.
I gotta
I don't
keep
do it the
praying.
way that they I don't do it the way that they want me to do it. And Pastor, what is his name? I can't think of his name. But he had a TikTok, and he said, "You mad because I'm blessed? Take it up with God. You mad because I'm anointed? Take it up with God." You know, and it's literally, that's my attitude about it. You mad because God didn't give it to you? Take it up with Him. And sometimes people are not seriously mad; they're just mad that it's not in them.
Well, this is the thing. Everyone that's watching this broadcast and everyone that sees what Aaliyah is doing, you could do it too,
Yeah.
right? But this is the thing. We want the success, but we don't want the struggle.
Yeah.
Okay? Because for people to say, I want that, I want it, you sure? Are you sure this is what you want? Because you don't know what it took to get here.
At all.
Right. So she lost her brothers to sit in this seat. And she realizes that God called her to do something. I want to encourage you, no matter what anyone says, because listen, the children. I saw a video that one of the young people responded to you, and he said, "No one is doing what she's doing for us." That was key. I really want to hear. I need you guys to hear that, and I need you to really, really hone in on that too, Aaliyah, because he said she's doing things no one is doing. That means not even the church. That means not even in their homes.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go there. So when we want to start nitpicking what people are trying to do, they're stepping outside of those four walls to do it.
Right.
So I just, I just I had to say that. I had to go there, Aaliyah, because it kind of irks me to know that you're getting naysayers and you're trying to help people. That kind of irks me a little bit, because you're young, and I'm so glad that you're not so impressionable that you will stop. I'm so glad that your mother put a seed inside of you that nobody can stop. I love that. That's why I can't wait to meet her. Cause I'm like, I need to meet the woman that raised this young woman,
She
right?
she's
To
someone to
rise above it all. What? I
Yeah.
love that. I love
Thank
that.
you.
Now, is there anyone else that you credit with this strength other than God that you have?
Oh, I was about to say God. God, my mother, my aunt Carolyn, that's my mom's sister. My publicist Tavetta, my godmother Angel. Um, it's a list of people, literally, that it takes a team.
Oh yeah.
it takes a it takes a tribe to deal with a person like me, and to deal with what I come with. See, people on Facebook, Instagram, news channels, they see the positive of it, but they don't see the backstory. And the kids that I work with, they're my strength. I buried one of my kids a year ago. That was a part of our program that actually helped us clean the facility that will be the youth center. Um, so having to bury him and seeing that all of his pallbearers weren't over the age of 18, that's a different type of pain. So my strength lies within. But I'm not the type of person, I'm more transparent than what other influencers are. I tell the truth. It wasn't
Amen.
easy and it's not easy. Some
Amen.
days I literally wake up and I feel like the world is on top of me instead of me being on top of the world. But I credit Bishop T.D. Jakes, my powerful
Yes.
testimony, where
Yes.
he stated, "What do you do when the story isn't going the way you thought it was going to go? What do you do when you're losing in public?" David was supposed to be king and the kingdom was dying, but David had to get up every day.
Amen.
Bishop T.D. Jakes, that's the honorable, the greatest, right? We look at Bishop T.D. Jakes' life, excuse me, and we're excited, right? He's a powerful man of God.
Mm-hmm.
But what do we do when he buried his mother-in-law, and not even 2 years later, he buried his mother? But he
Yes.
asks God, if you had enough power to save the church, I know you have enough power to save my mother. But you have to accept God's plan. And then you
That's
have
right.
people in your life that are around you, but then you have to express to them, you can't get this because you run with me. You have to
That's
cry
right.
with me. You have to crawl with me. You have to curl up in a corner and want to die with me. Feel like
Amen.
blowing your brains out sometime until you suffered a while.
Come on.
When you say Jesus, demons will tremble. You know? So
Yes.
for me, more of my strength comes from knowing that segment right there. Everything I just gave you was Bishop T.D. Jakes, but I've watched it so much, it's become my life.
I've heard that. I've actually heard that.
It's
I watch
become
him a
my
lot
life.
too. Yeah.
His 15-year-old daughter came to him and told her she was pregnant. How
Mm-hmm.
could that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Never been on a date. Never went out, watching like a hawk, preaching to other people's children. And I felt him
Mm-hmm.
on that, because when it hit close to home, how can that happen when I'm out here? God, I'm doing your work. I'm doing what you said for me to do. So how do these things keep happening to me? Not
Right.
knowing that same child, the place of your greatest agony will be the place of your greatest success. The place
Amen.
where you pray the greatest price will be the place where you succeed in life. So for me, I'm just paying the price. It's a sacrifice. And so if someone was to ask me, well, if you could bring your brothers back here, the old me would say, yeah, bring them back. Still, some days, even in my spiritual eye, I say, Lord, if I could have one more conversation with them. But then when it all boils down, I would do it all over again, 10 times if
Yes.
I had to, because
Yes.
if it costs nothing to God, what does it mean to me? If everything came to me easy and I never had to suffer for anything, what would it mean? It would be nothing to me. It would just be something given to me. So I feel like losing my brother was a sacrifice. Losing them, that was a sacrifice. Not, sacrifices now are created and put together with the other world and the universe and things grand rise and the things that people talk about. For me, it's a biblical sacrifice for me.
Yes.
I
Yes.
paid a price, but it wasn't a price that I thought that I was going to pay. God knew I was going to have to pay that price. But he structured me and he knew that he would give me the strength to fight whatever came, not even for me to fight, for him to fight for me, but me to
Mhm.
stand still and know that he was God.
Oh yeah, and he allowed that, and this is another thing that came from TD Jake. Since we're talking about it, he allowed those things to come on you because he knows what he put in you.
Yeah.
You know, and your mother has been grooming you for this ever since you were a little girl.
Yes.
Yeah. When people talk about losing somebody, this is where I get some of my peace from when I lose a loved one. And I feel like this is just the worst pain I could deal with because losing my sister is still painful to me.
Hmm.
But I think about when Jesus had to get up on the cross, God had to give up his son,
His
right?
son.
And then Judas betrayed him, Peter denied him. He went through all of this, and we lose it. when somebody betrays us or talks
Mhm.
about us or do this or go on Instagram and all this kind of stuff. But in that case, had Judas not done it, we wouldn't have what we know as salvation. It was because of that that we have salvation. So it's almost like God knew what he was doing. And sometimes when he's moving people, because this is the thing that I reach out to God and talk a lot about, is it seems like sometimes, Aaliyah, it seems like people are just falling off. It's like people are just falling off. You're like, well, God, he says, you want me to enlarge the territory, right? Yeah. Okay, well, then these people got to go, right? I can just see me having a conversation with God. I'm like, but I was with them for many years. Yeah, I know. And they didn't like you at all. And you were just stringing them
God
along,
heard the
right?
conversations that they had about you when you weren't.
Yes. Preach, young lady, preach. And we're trying to hold on to stuff. God is trying to open a door, and we're the reason it won't open
That's a
because we're
word.
trying to bring somebody through it.
Pastor Hannah speaks on it. He preached about a year ago. My parents attend Pastor Hannah's church. And he said, God is getting ready to set you up in a room with people, but they're not going to know who you are. But you're going to see
Mm,
how they treat you before they find out who you are. And
mm.
then once they find out who you are, you're going to see how they try to treat you. But God has already gave you a sign and lined you up to see how they treat you so you can know ahead of time. See, those that treat you like who you are and see the anointing ahead of time, those are the ones you want to stick beside you, right? See, I'll never forget. We were in church one Sunday. He said the person you're calling your best friend ain't even your best friend. That's not
Ooh.
even who God
How did
aligned
that
you to.
feel? How did
It
that
feels
feel, Aaliyah? To hear that. That's not your best friend, baby.
it
This
feels
is
heavy
somebody.
because
Yeah.
God has now positioned me to a place of being lonely. You can't get this because you run with me. You have to cry with me. You have to crawl with me. Literally, for Bishop T.D. Jakes to say you have to curl up in the corner and want to die with me. Feel like blowing your brains out. And
Wow.
say to yourself, though he slay me,
Yet will I trust him.
though he
Yes.
slay me. This season of my
Yeah.
life is more of though he slay me. I've lost friends. I've lost family members. I've lost things. But this is what I asked him for. Pray at Jabez, enlarge my territory. I pray for increase. Bless me. And Lord, when you bless me this time, that's my prayer every time. You could trust me with it. But I've
Yes.
shown him that he couldn't trust me with
Yes.
it because he's removed those people. And once I got what I told him he could trust me with, I invited them back in. Oh, yeah, let's go do this. But they can't get this because they run with me. So now is more of a time where I have to be separated. You can't be of the world and in the world if you've been called to be different.
Oh, yes. To be different, you have to be different than the
So
world. That's right.
being 22 and now I can't be your average 22-year-old. I
That's
can't
right.
just
And
go
you're
to the
not.
party. I
And
can't
you're
just
not. There's
I
nothing
can't
average
just,
about you.
I can't just go to the parties. I can't just
That's
drink. I
right.
can't just because
That's
how
right.
can I be of the world when I have something that's different? My cousin told me you have the ball in your hand right now. And it's about what you do with it.
That's right.
Aaliyah, elite, elite, Aaliyah. It's about what you do with it. When you
That's
have the
right.
ball, are you going to carry it like you mediocre? Are you going to carry it like you mean something? So now I say to God every night, remove anyone or anything, but give me the strength for when you remove them to know what to do.
That's right. That's good.
Help me to be okay with being alone in this season. Help me to be okay with going out to eat by myself. Help me to be okay with not being around other people. So in this season, all of those things boil down to improving my nonprofit and improving the gift that God gave me.
Amen. So let's talk a little bit about that. That was just, oh girl, I was just getting ready to go all the way down that. We could talk all night about that, the
Right?
goodness of God and the stories and the experiences.
Yeah.
Because one thing for sure, Leah, once you become the leader, you also become a target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They love you when you're on top. One bad
Yeah.
decision, you fall, though he slay me.
Yeah. Well, I
When you
trust.
fall, they're never ready to accept you. See, even though Steve Harvey is comical, Steve Harvey has an anointing on him.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
He has an
I
anointing.
love him. Yes.
He talked about how his friends, he was invited somewhere and they acted a fool. Yeah, man, you not from the hood no more. You stay true to the hood. What are you staying true to them for?
Right.
What do you stay true to? I teach my children that I work with in Gary. They have this thing. Well, I'm gonna bang East Side. I'm gonna bang Gary, but don't own a lick of property or land on that side. Ask them, what are you standing for? You don't own it. It's not
All right.
yours. So what does it mean to you? So for me, when people say you changed, I'm supposed to. You act different.
Very good answer. You're supposed to.
I'm supposed to. You
Yes.
think you better. I'm supposed
I,
to.
yeah,
I'm supposed to act better.
that's
Because
right.
if I act of the crowd, I'm going to continue to have a caged mindset. Nipsey
Absolutely.
Hussle said it better. If you have a circle and no one thinks outside of the box, you don't have a circle, you have a cage
Mm-hmm.
because you're an
That's
animal.
good. Oh
You're an
yeah, I
animal.
remember reading that. That's good. That's
You're an
very, very
animal. You
good.
you
That's
can't
right.
think outside of your box.
That's
So for
right.
me, I'm more open to having people that can with relationships with people. When I walk into a business room, I never forget a lady told my mother, she said, well, every time your daughter walks in here, she walks in here like she owns this building.
I love
She said
it.
that's one thing that you're supposed to do. You walk in everywhere with confidence because
That's
I've
right.
had people tear my confidence down. I've had people tell me I'm too young. I'm not old enough.
No,
I can never
no.
accomplish it. I can never have
Mm-mm.
it done. It's not in me. It's not something that I'm educated to do. I don't have a college degree, but your anointing outweighs whatever title that someone thinks that you should have.
Let me tell you something. And I want you to play this one back. This is something that I truly, truly believe in my heart. God doesn't always call the qualified, but he
Mm.
will always qualify the ones he called.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Remember that. Now I want to talk about something because we're getting ready to move into the midterm elections. Gun policy. Guys, listen. For those of you that don't know, Tuesday, I hope you are setting your schedule up to go and vote. Let me say that again. Tuesday, November 8th is election Tuesday. That means you need to go in your neighborhood, your hood, wherever that is, and vote. Let me
Yeah.
tell you a little bit about what the Dems, the Democrats, because I'm not trying to push either or on this broadcast. I'm just stating factually what's going on. The Dems, the top three things that the Democrats are looking at in this election: economy, healthcare, and abortions. Remember, because they overturned Roe versus Wade. So they're concerned about abortions and what's going on in the Supreme Court, those appointments, right? The Republicans, number one on their list is also economy, but second is education and then energy policy. Now, one of the things I did see, Aaliyah, on the list as well was gun policies. People are interested in gun. Now, how political is the gun policy game, do you think?
I think it's very political. They know what they're doing. It's a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
They put them in the low, moderate income communities. They put these guns. They put these gas stations. They put these stores owned by other races to set us up, and they
Mm,
sell them to us. They sell the weed and the marijuana that has been laced with other things to synthetic materials to change the mindset of our people. So I think it's a systematic thing, and we fall for the system every time.
absolutely. We're falling for it. We're falling for it. Unfortunately, we are falling for it, and then we don't get out and vote. And I
Mm,
know that a lot of people are saying, Ella, what's the point? I mean, like, they all do what they want. Listen, we all have a responsibility to make our say in this country.
mm,
You can't complain if you're not going to try to do something about it. I am a big on this because I'll be honest with you, Lee. I wasn't always a person that voted. I used to think the same way. Like, whatever, they're gonna do what they want. But we see what's going on in this country, guys. We never thought Roe versus Wade would get overturned either, did we? But they did, right?
yeah.
So we really need to wake up and get involved. Now, gun policy, you say that you think is very political. Do you think, I mean, do you ever hear, Aaliyah, because I know you're out here and you're fighting for gun policy regulations. I mean, I'm sure that you want them to change in certain kind of ways, but do you ever hear them talk about where these guns come from? Are we fighting to get rid of that? Are we fighting to find out, okay, where'd you get this gun, young man? And then prosecuting those people because you gave a minor a gun who's not ready. I mean, it's like this is an item that's on the street that's a weapon. It was used to kill someone. So, like, are we making a big fuss about this as well?
How can they process it when it's them? how can I
Touche.
how can I how can I punish someone when I have something to do with it?
Yeah.
When I'm a part of the problem.
I 100% agree. I believe 100% that these guns are placed in our communities, but we're taking them and we're using them to kill people. And it's almost like, okay,
Killing
who do you
not
blame?
people, each other.
Each other. Who do we blame then? Do we blame the one who gave us the gun or do we blame the person that pulls the trigger? Who's more responsible? Or are they
It's a
equal?
50-50 situation because you preyed on my vulnerability. You preyed on where I come from. You preyed on my environment. Not PRAY, but PREY.
PREY. Right, right. So
On
when
my
we say they're
predicament.
dropping these guns in the community, like what are they doing? They're not putting them in the middle of the street. Like how are they getting them though?
They get involved in I think that they get involved with the gangs. They find the weak link.
There we
Think
go.
of what was the movie that just came out? Judah about
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
think of that ah
Was it? Are we talking about the
Fred
movie
Hampton.
with? Yeah, yeah, with the Black Panthers.
Judah the Black, right. So think
Yeah.
of that movie. They
Oh
find
yeah,
a weak link
yeah. That's how they always do it,
and they
and
prey
bring
on the
down.
weak link.
Yeah, and use
And
them to filter through the other people. Yeah.
that's it. And if you fall for it, it's gotta be, again, in the words of Nipsey Hussle, it gotta be in you and not on you. And
So
a
let
lot
me
of
ask you a
times on
question.
the,
The young man that you said you had to bury one of your kids.
hmm
How old was he?
he was 15.
15 years old. Gun
hmm
violence. Ah. And when you said that all the pallbearers were like younger than 18, that just broke my heart. Um what how do you as a mentor to these young people? What is your backup when you're talking to them, mentoring them? Like what are you telling them? How do you try to keep them away from this type of stuff?
I'm not even gonna say that I try to keep them away from it. I try to give them something else to believe in.
Okay.
If you live in a project, I can't change where you live, but I can give you a better vision of what's outside of that project. I can help you develop your social development skills to be able to know how to operate outside of your environment
That's very good. Because what you're trying to do, you don't want them to become a product of their environment.
at all.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes, again, it's in you. It's not on these kids. A lot of the children I work with, people think that you only suffer from post traumatic stress disorder if you fought a war. But it's a war every day in low, moderate income communities. We're in an epidemic of gun violence. And I told someone recently, we did a study. We were in an epidemic before were in a pandemic. And the
Hmm.
epidemic is continuing.
And they're thinking that the pandemic is where this came from. No, like you said, it was an epidemic way before. This is a public health crisis, guys. And I think that people tend to be disconnected if it's not happening in their city. Well, this isn't something that comes around us, so we're just not going to worry about it. But this is happening. All our babies are dying at alarming rates, guys. Our babies, children, 15 to 24, dying. 1 to 17, just it's just now. I will say this, Aaliyah, based on recent stats, they said that it's going down a little in Chicago. Like 110 people died less this year than last year. Um, that's not a lot. And how do we know these stats are right? I'm just saying that. But
Exactly.
Right, right. But this is what they said, and they said it's because they're trying to speak more with the communities. Do we want our communities policed more, less, or the same as where they are?
I think it's going to take more than law enforcement to help us during this time. I think that it takes for us to come together as a community. Um, Credit to Herbert Wright. He's a big rapper in Chicago. They call him G Herbo. He wrote a whole album on PTSD. He's never been in a war, but he's been in the war of the streets, right?
Right.
Before he released PTSD, he had a song called "Summer Is Canceled." I believe this was in summer of this was 2019 or 2020. I'm gonna say 2019, when they were going and they were killing women. Innocent women were being killed in
Ooh.
Chicago,
Ooh.
right? And he created an entire album, single, and he expressed you don't get any points for killing an innocent woman or child. And it goes back to our history. We don't know who we are.
True.
Hey, black child, that's really something that needs to be taught. Do you know who you
Yes.
really are? We don't know.
Yes.
We are who we let them tell us we are. We don't know who we are. Some
If
of
you
us.
don't know who you are, somebody else will tell you, and that's not what you want.
And if you don't know what you stand for, you have to, my mom will always say, you have to stand for something or you'll fall for everything. You can never allow
Yeah.
someone to sell you a dream if you have a dream of your own. And for me, my goal is to continue my own dream and teach the young children that just because it shines and it's diamond and it sparkles, it costs you more. It'll cost you your life.
Oh yeah. We talked about that last week with Scar, who was here on the broadcast, and he made some very good points, and he mentioned that. What does it cost you? The people, places, and things that are in your life. What is it costing you? Because
Yeah.
everything has a price. You can believe that. And I love that you have these young people, Aaliyah, and you're mentoring to them. How do you mentor to them? Do you do it locally there, or do you have like an online mentoring session that you do that goes beyond Chicago? I mean, Gary, Indiana. What? How do you reach them, the young
So we
people?
go inside of the schools.
Okay.
We work inside of the schools. We had a summer program with over 50 children. We haven't really picked up as much. We were scheduled to have a after school program in the city of Gary, so keep those prayers coming up for that.
Nice.
But we try to be effective. We're more powerful in numbers, and they're not going to take you serious until you make demands. That's probably the
Exactly.
only thing I agree with Malcolm X on. You have to demand respect in a time like this. Um, of course, I take the Martin Luther King route on everything. Peaceful,
Yeah.
be okay. But sometimes you have to be Malcolm and you have to demand your respect. You have to
I think a lot
demand.
of times you have to be Malcolm. Yeah.
You have to demand equality. You have to demand results. Because if you don't, they'll just settle because they think you're
Because you can
fine.
ask nicely, and you ask nicely. I'm so sure you do. But then what? When they say wait, when they say we'll get to it, when they say yeah, that's on our next meeting agenda that we will address,
And that's
you
what we're
have
currently dealing with now.
uh
And then
huh.
when they do that, you make them take accountability and you make them the nice way. You make them take the words that they dished out.
Yeah, throw them back up in their face sometimes, and then use your power. You need votes. I
Yeah.
mean,
A
when
potential.
all else fails, yeah, well, you know what? We put you in this office. We can take you out. How about that?
That's it.
Have enough people. You know what? I just had a lean on me moment. The part in the movie where the lady was going up against Joe Clark, and she says, "Now I got enough people line up," because she was like, "You're not too popular this day, are you, Mayor?" You remember the part where she was trying to get Joe Clark, and she was working with the mayor, and she was trying to, like get him to give her get in and arrest him, and she was just, I don't know, maybe did you see the movie?
I watched it. Lena, I think that, of course, I watched the movie because just like Joe Clark, I am an advocate for the kids. Sometimes
Yeah.
you have to be Joe Clark.
Yeah, sometimes you got to
Sometimes
be
you
Joe
have to
Clark too.
sometimes you have to be Joe Clark because you just don't understand the society in their mindsets, and you try to understand it, and you go into the school. I'll never forget one day I walked into the school. The mayor called me, former mayor called me, and she said, "Hey, I need you to come to the school. I need you." A young man, 14-year-old boy, got killed in a drive-by. The kids were distraught. They were, all just hurt. And she said, "I need you to come talk to the kids." And I walked in, and it was a horror scene. And I said, "I don't think that they need me. They need Joe Clark. They don't need me. This is a different case." And so when you walk into
So what did
places
you
like
find when you got there? What did you find?
a lot of children that needed Joe Clark,
Wow.
children that needed the teachers were scared of the kids.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now fast forward a couple years later, they have the teachers that are putting fear in the children as needed. They have
Yeah.
previous more of generation, I think I'm X or Z, are moving into
Uh-huh.
the schools, and we're not going to play with you. With 22, 23, 24, 25, we're your teacher now. We know how you try to play because we just got out of school, so we know
That's
how it is.
right. That's
So
right.
we
That's
work a
right.
little better with them compared to someone who's been doing this since the 90s.
Because
You
they're
can't
tired.
you're tired, but
Yeah.
you can't put the same
Yeah.
skills in the early 2000s on the kid that's in school 2022.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very good point, about the schools needing a Joe Clark because it's getting that bad in our school system again. I thought that we had moved away from that to where the teachers are scared of the students. Because when I watched that movie, it seems like, oh my gosh, really? The teachers are afraid. Yeah. And he
Absolutely.
made a very good point. If you can't reach them, how can they learn?
Yeah.
They can't learn in this type of environment. So, I that's a good point that you raised, that you recognize that no, they need something more than this. Sometimes you got to be a Joe Clark. Sometimes you got to be a Malcolm X. Sometimes you got to be a Martin Luther King, because there's room for all of those scenarios, to be honest, right? But sometimes, like you said, so let me ask you this too, because I want to stay on this political thing a little bit, because how do we, with the Parkland shooting, what happened here in Florida, the young man that came in and killed all these people, you know, something like that. I don't know if we are still grasping what we need in this country for those types of things not to happen, because based on statistics, schools, guns being in schools is happening more and more in this country, guys. This country, that we can't, your kids going to school aren't safe, like, because of guns. How did you feel about that when you heard about the Parkland shooting?
Considering the fact that I've been able to speak at Sandy Hook and Save, which is Students Against Violence Everywhere Summit, um, of course, it's devastating, but it happens in our communities every day. So why is it bigger? We have mass shootings every day in African American communities.
Yeah.
Every day. Within schools, on school properties, outside of school, in neighborhoods, and it's not a big deal. So for me, I feel the same sympathy that I have for our children. But the only thing about our children is we don't get the news footage. We don't get the articles. We don't get the funds raised. We don't get any of that. We don't get the rebuilding. We don't get the structure. But mass shootings happen in African American neighborhoods every day. I could take you to Baltimore, and I'm sure if we stay in the center of that neighborhood, or Philly,
Yeah.
or Flint,
Yeah.
or
These are all cities
these,
that are hurting right now. Absolutely.
you'll see a different culture.
Every
Even
11 minutes, a kid in a black community is wounded or
ages
killed.
14 to 24 is the number one target of gun violence in the United
Jesus.
States of America. Why doesn't it happen in other countries? Is because their justice system is set up a little different. They're set up freely, and they have more, so they don't have to go after less. because they have what they need. And so it's not a big issue.
Do you get pastors and politicians to stand with you?
To stand with me. Yes, my pastor is very supportive. So I'll give a special thank you to my pastor, which is Pastor Rodney C. Griffin Jr., well, Dr. Rodney C. Griffin Jr. Of a Greater Grace Church. He's very supportive. Bishop Roberts. It's some very great pastors in the city of Gary. You know, Pastor Boone, Pastor Watson. They're very big on
Eric
gun
Boone?
violence.
Eric
Yes.
Boone? Oh wow, Eric Boone and Michael Watson were on the broadcast
Yep.
a
So
few weeks back. Yeah.
very
Yeah,
positive
that's
people
good.
in the city of Gary that put in work. Senator Eddie Milton. I mean, they're great people that try, to make things different. But it takes a little bit more than us.
What does it take? What do we need?
It takes for, see, we can be the voice, but you have to have a choir, right? So think of it like this: we're Diana Ross,
Yay,
but
I
we
love
need
Diana Ross. Can I be Diana?
you can be Diana, but we
Okay,
need the
thank you.
people in the back. We're
All right.
Tina, but we need the X in the back. We're we're David Ruffin, but we need everyone else to fall in line behind us. United we stand, divided we fall. And until we all come together as one and have the same belief or almost the same belief, we'll never be able to conquer the issue together. We'll never be able to tell them not to damage our communities if we don't show them that we're done damaging our communities.
Very good point. And I've been saying that for a long time. Did you guys hear that? That was, we could end the show right there. That was so on point. They're not going to respect us until we learn how to respect ourselves. They're looking at us saying, you know what? Wow, you guys are coming on this platform to talk about gun violence, but most of it is happening in your community. And unfortunately, it's true. So so how do we, I mean, because there has to be something. We have to have a pointed plan. Aaliyah, how do we start getting us to care more about our communities? How do we do that? Can we do it from the pulpit? Can we do it
We can't blame
what
everything on the church.
right?
We can't blame everything on the church because your body is a temple. You're the
Hmm.
church outside of the church. The church is a building. So we can't keep blaming the church. We can't keep blaming the pastors because they're still human at the end of the day. They're
True.
leaders. They can only lead the blind so long until they're able to see. The man that couldn't see, God spit in his hand, touched his eyes, he was able to see. The woman with the issue of
Right.
blood. If I could just touch the hem, but how many times am I going to have to give you the hem for you to touch it, for you to want to do the right thing?
Right,
I
right.
think we've had a lot of, this is horrible, but we've had a lot of Kyrie Irvings and a lot of Kanye West throughout the years. And even though we don't agree fully with what they're saying or how they're saying it the way that we need. They're tired of us not saying it how it needs to be said. So now they've decided to
Amen.
say it how they want to say it. But if
True.
we would have took the point that Kanye West gave us back in 2005 or 2006 when we released his album Crack Music, giving us a just of trading hooks and for Grammys in life, and our grandmothers not having to be slaves or things like that. If we would have took the Jesus Walks Kanye West and listened to the hints that he was trying to give us in his voice, I'm sure we wouldn't get 22 Kanye West because we would have been positioned a little different. So for me, I think that it takes for us to be bold and brave. We're scared.
Yeah.
We're scared. We're okay with being comfortable. I'm
Yes.
not okay with
I
being comfortable.
That is a
I'm okay
very
with
good
talking
point.
about gun violence. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable in rooms. People don't want you to talk about how they're using the
Yeah.
funding that's supposed to be for low, moderate income communities to send their kids to Howard. People don't like when you call them out on things like that. Those are conversations that I like to have because if I don't have them, who will? If I don't stand for something, who will? If I don't call it out, who will be the voice of this next generation? So for me, I'm the type of person that I feel like We all have to come to one common ground. And even if we don't come to one common ground and we come to two, you have to pick your side and stay on it. And so
Right.
for me, I think that as an African American culture, we haven't found our side yet. We don't know when we want to call somebody racist and when we just want to settle and brush it under the rug. Um, we buy Gucci, we buy Louis, we buy Prada, we buy name brands, we buy all these things, but they don't even like us. I'm a person that buy these brands, right? But I'm also not a person that stands up and say, when an African American person voices their opinion, I go down their throat because these are brands that I still support.
So so then again, who should we be having these conversations with then?
I,
Where do we start?
I think that the leadership that we trusted in, Black Lives Matter, not Black Lives Matter.
Well, I didn't trust in Black Lives. I didn't. I mean, I'm just going to be honest.
So many
I
people came
I
and fed
didn't.
into that.
I believe in the statement,
Yeah,
but not the organization. Because all lives do matter. I mean, but the reason that we were saying Black Lives Matter is because it didn't matter to everybody. And
I
I
still
think
believe
that,
that all lives matter, but I still believe my Black lives matter. I still
oh
believe that
yeah,
it's harder for
absolutely,
me to be an African
absolutely.
American person, to be a minority in the United States of America than it is for other people. I still believe in privilege. Instead of right privilege,
Oh
I
yeah,
believe in the other privilege.
yeah.
So I still believe those things happen, but like I'll never forget I was in fourth grade and my mom would shop at AJ Wright's and they had t-shirts out from Young Jeezy released a song, My President is Black. And I went to school. I said, Mom, I can't wait to wear my shirt to school. I can't wait. My shirt said My President is Black. I was in fourth grade. What issue was it? Because we're supposed to have freedom of speech, right?
Right?
Free of judgment. So I'm
Did you get
supposed to
in
be able to
trouble?
wear. My mom told me I couldn't wear it to school because I was going to Maryville Community School Corporation that was not built for African American children. So how would they take me wearing a shirt that says My President is Black?
Ooh. Well, how did you feel about that?
My president is Black, and my president is still Black to this day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my way of it. I
Well, I
still
mean,
believe that.
I like your boldness and I like your comfortableness. You are comfortable with this boldness that God has put upon you. You don't waver. And I think that's key. And a lot of leaders don't have that because people will move whichever way the wind moves. They're like, okay, well, we're going over here today. Oh, okay. We're going over here today. Okay. You never know where they stand because they're always moving, you
Yeah.
know? So I appreciate and love it. And I can see it, I can see why you get some naysayers because you're very what's the word?
Vocal.
Yeah, that's it. Very vocal and confident in your vocality. I love that because you know what? It's one thing to say things, but you'll say it any time of the day. That makes a difference. Because
That's
some people
beautiful.
say it in certain circles. And listen,
Mm-mm.
you know what? This is one thing I want to definitely encourage you, Aaliyah. God is going to open up doors because He wants you to get into the room and change it. But make sure when you get in the room that you don't let the room change you.
Amen. And that's the key. What does it profit a
Yeah,
man to gain the world and lose his soul?
absolutely. He trusts you with it. I saw that somebody said earlier, they said God trusted you with pain. And He trusts you with His word too. He trusts you
Yeah.
with His word because He knows that no matter what platform you're on, you're going to talk about Him. What's the first thing you said when I said, Welcome to the Ella Johnson Show? What'd you say?
First,
To
giving honor.
God be the glory. So you honor Him, He's going to always honor you. I'm
The
proud of
Christian
you.
Broadcasting Network called me in 2019 after I went on Good Morning America, a national show. And I started Good Morning America off with first giving honor to God.
Right. Of course.
And the lady before she interviewed me, she said she's been on the Christian Broadcasting Network. And over her years, she had, if she's never, she hadn't really ever seen anyone that brave on someone's national television to say first giving honor to God on a live stream. I'm comfortable when within it and with it because I know if it wasn't for God or because of a higher power, not even a higher power, if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be here
Absolutely.
at this
I
point.
I love you for that because that reminds me of Tyler Perry. I know you've probably heard his story. He talks about how
Yeah,
he ended up being in the room with all these top execs and they didn't want him to say God on their network. And they said, well, if my God is not welcome, I'm not either.
neither.
And you got to be willing to walk away from some big numbers if you're really real about it. And he
Yeah,
did. And they called him back and they said, you could say whatever you want on this network. You can say, you know what I'm
that's
saying?
it.
I love it. I love it. And that's where I see you. I think that you are forced to be reckoned with. And I
Thank
think that God is not even close to being done with you. You have just touched the surface. You haven't even touched the surface,
you.
right? Of where you're gonna go. What's coming up for Leah? What do you want to do after we get this youth center open? Are you gonna have like a grand opening for that? I would love to come to Gary, Indiana, and be a part of your grand opening for your youth center.
We would definitely love to have you. No plan that we have for ourselves is bigger than the plan that God has for us. So right now, where
Amen.
we are is we're riding a wave. Delay does not mean denial,
That's
and
right.
I'm just riding a wave. I'm literally just putting my seatbelt on and saying, God, this is not what we talked about, but if it's your will, I'm sitting back and I'm gonna watch you do it.
Yeah,
So
he's
I'm
in
just
it.
watching God.
Well, I'm watching God with you. I think that you are incredible, Aaliyah.
Thank you.
This is we've been back and forth texting during the week, but this is my first time actually seeing you and actually talking to you was today, and I am just 100% impressed with you. You're an
Thank you.
incredible young woman. I know my guests agree. What is it that you're feeling right now? What's the best thing that God could do for you and your young people that you mentor?
Um, every day I pray that Ephesians 3:20 is over my life, where God can do exceedingly abundantly above all I could ask or imagine. So I'm just in a season of supernatural blessings and believing God to blow my mind. And so
All
with
right.
believing God to blow my mind, I'll continue to trust Him on this path. No, I'm not perfect, but I'll continue to trust the path that He has for me.
I like this what your publicist says. She says Aaliyah is a distributor of hope.
That's
Yes,
my
she
idea.
is, Miss Tavetta. Yes, she is. Well, listen, I want you guys to make sure that you visit Aaliyah's website. It is www.iamthem.org. I like that name, I Am Them. Where does that come from?
Jesus is the I am, is them, is the youth.
Oh, I like that. Nice.
Thank you.
I like that. I love your website. I love what you're
Thank you.
doing. I'm just impressed. Like I really am impressed and I'm glad to see that you took your pain and turned it into your purpose. Is there anything that you would like to say to everybody that's watching tonight before we get out of here?
Well, I first want to thank you so much, Miss Johnson, for having me, and I pray that God continues to blow your mind. I pray He continues to bless you and your businesses.
Thank you.
I thank you to everyone that tuned in, and may God continue to bless us all. We're all living in a season of uncomfort of being uncomfortable and just growing into who God called us to be. And I'm very big on leaving a legacy and not a reputation. I would definitely love for you all to visit our website, whether it's to volunteer, donate, or support. All donations are tax deductible through our nonprofit. So thank you so much again. Our website is iamthem.org. Our Facebook is Hope ASW and our Instagram is Hope underscore ASW. So thank you so much for having us again.
Yay. Well, listen, guys, I want to thank you guys all so much for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show today. I told you this was going to be a treat, right? All month we've been interviewing people who have a story and they've all taken and done something with it, and that's exactly what Aaliyah is doing. And I can't wait to see you in another 5 years, Aaliyah. I want
Thank
you to come back.
I
You'll probably
received
be
it.
you'll be looking just as young as you are today. I mean, you look like you're no more than 15 years old. Bless you.
That's the goal.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Well, I want to say hello to your family, to your mom, to all the people that support Aaliyah. And I want to even say something to the ones who were naysayers. You can't stop God. Just remember that.
At
You can't
all.
stop God, right? Just saying. You can try. No weapon formed against us shall prosper. Just remember that. Well, listen, guys, I'm going to get out of here. We'll be back next week for another interesting story. Listen, it's true stories here on the Ella Johnson Show. I love true stories. If you would like to share your story here, you know what to do. Send an email to the Ella Johnson Show at gmail.com or send me a text message 407-334-6997. But next week, we have a story for you. I got this one right before I started this show, and I'm just, you guys, you're not going to want to miss this one next week, right? So we'll see you. Have a great week. And remember what my quote was today. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. Do you want to say the last words before I'm looking for my video to get out of here, Leah? Anything you want to say?
It's in you and not on you. And as long as it remains in you, God will continue to guide you. For every vision he supplies, a resource comes with it.
I like that. Listen, she said that. Listen, we can end right there. For every vision, God always provides provision. Remember that too. All right, guys, we'll see you next week right here on the Ella Johnson Show. Have a wonderful week. Next time, we'll see you. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show. We'll see you next time.
We are supporters of the Ella Johnson Show. We live in South Korea. We have been watching Ella Johnson Show for like a year now. And we love her show. Her show is very inspirational, motivational, and educational.
If you would like to be a guest on the Ella Johnson Show, send an email to theellajohnsonshow@gmail.com or send a text message to 407-334-6997.
We love Ella Johnson Show.